On today's child seat review segment, we're taking a look at the 2015 Dodge Charger. Now, because the Dodge Charger and the Chrysler 300 are so closely related, the seating dimensions on the inside that would impact a child seat are virtually identical. So this review will cover both the Chrysler 300 for 2015 as well as the Dodge Charger. The Charger has received a fairly major mid-cycle refresh for the 2015 model year, so if you want to know more about that, you will find the complete review on my channel. As always, this is a Graco Classic Ride 50 child seat. It is a convertible child seat suitable for forward or rearward facing installation and children between 4 and 50 pounds. Let's go ahead and see how well they fit. Competition from the Charger is varied. It runs from something like an Impala to an Avalon to something perhaps like a Mercedes-Benz E-Class if you're looking for a discount rear-wheel drive sedan compared to those luxury entries. While that may sound laughable with the V6 base Charger, it definitely is applicable with the higher horsepower versions of this vehicle. Big things you need to know, however, are that compared to some of those larger vehicles like the Ford Taurus or the Chevy Impala that are front-wheel drive, we have a little bit less combined legroom in this vehicle than those vehicles. That would be front legroom plus rear legroom. That means it will be a little bit tighter, especially for rearward-facing child seats. I'm going to go ahead and adjust this front passenger seat so I have about 1 inch of legroom between my knees and the dashboard. The front seats are very thickly padded and they are not as narrow as some of the competition, so it does reduce a little bit of the legroom in the back. In addition, again, the combined legroom in this vehicle is not as high as you'll find in some of those large front-wheel drive competitors. That means I have a little bit less room back here for a rearward-facing child seat. Now, this particular child seat is at the proper installation angle, but it's not strapped in, so it would move a little bit further to the rear. That means that I can barely fit one right there behind myself at 6 feet tall. Unlike many of the vehicles out there right now, the Charger and the 300 have very symmetrical dashboards. That means I was also able to fit this rearward-facing child seat behind me in the driver's side. As you may have heard, the Chrysler 300 and the Dodge Charger are related to the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. They're sort of that last fruit of the Mercedes-Benz Chrysler tie-up. Although these vehicles are based on the Mercedes, they are much, much larger than the Mercedes, and that's really obvious when you take a look at this child seat installation in the back. I have gobs of room back here compared to that German sedan. The 300 may not have quite the same legroom as some of its competition, but it is very generous in terms of width across the rear bench seat. I installed these 3 child seats. I have no problem fitting them in the back. I didn't obviously put the top tether anchors on, but those did install very easily. And I still have about 2 to 3 inches of room between the child seat and the door. That means I could put wider child seats in the 300 or the Charger if I wanted to. In terms of anchors, we have latch anchors for the outboard seating positions and top tether anchors for all 3 seating positions. Rather unfortunately, these headrests on the rear seat are fixed. And what that really means to you is if you are going to use a top tether anchor and you're going to attach it properly to the seat, it is going to bite into these headrests in the back. It's obvious when you take a look inside the trunk that this is not your father's Dodge anymore, because this only has a 16.5 cubic foot trunk. And while that may sound large, it is about 20% smaller than the Ford Taurus's trunk. One of the big things you'll notice is that we cannot put roller bags in this position and still close the trunk lid, and you can do that in some of the front-wheel drive competition. That means this trunk isn't quite as conveniently shaped either. Now, thankfully, the trunk is still barely large enough that I can stack my roller bags in this configuration and still close that trunk lid. Let's go ahead and see how well those child seats fit inside. The first thing you'll notice when jamming child seats in the trunk is that we have just barely enough room to put child seats on their sides all the way in. They don't go quite all the way to the rear seat backs, however. Although 16.5 cubic feet of trunk space is relatively generous for a modern vehicle, the shape of this trunk overall means that it's more difficult to fit 3 child seats and 2 roller bags in the back. You should also know that if you do get the optional subwoofer, that does take away some of that 16.5 cubic feet. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and that's been our child seat review of the 2015 Dodge Charger as well as the Chrysler 300. Go ahead and subscribe to this video, comment on this video, tell me what you liked and didn't like about it, and be sure to check out the full review of the 2015 Dodge Charger RT.